Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Better Body Radio. Today is episode number 39, and I'm absolutely stoked to be welcoming Nathan Johnson to Better Body Radio. Now, myself and Nath first met Nathan in Dubai, and we all hit it off right from the first meeting. Nathan then helped us prepare for a photo shoot, so we can vouch for his knowledge and experience firsthand, even though we're coaches ourselves. Nathan's an online coach who specialises in helping the general population achieve jaw-dropping body, mind and life transformations, and I genuinely mean that. He produces some incredible results. So before going online, Nathan spent time in the trenches as a personal trainer, working at some of the leading boutique personal training trainer businesses in the industry. He then went on to play an integral role in the growth of one of the UK's leading online coaching businesses as well. Now that Nath has made the decision to build his own online coaching business, aptly named Autonomy, I really wanted to get him on a call just to chat about his experiences, maybe provide some advice for those out there looking to transform their physique and what's next for Nathan and Autonomy. He's a super humble and genuine human with a lot of valuable insight. So I know you're all going to love this episode. All right, Nath, thanks for coming on.
Oh no, it's my pleasure. It's been a very long time, but it's good to reminisce about the old days and just talk shop as always.
Yeah, so it was good to have a chat off air, but it's to be honest, I remember when I went back starting this podcast, which was right at this kind of midway through lockdown, and everyone, I can imagine how many podcasts were probably started during that time as well. You've probably seen a few, right? And I just thought, like, who would be some of the first people I'd want to get on, and like I was thinking, like Cal, Dan Smith, and I was like, Nath, definitely to get Nath on, but at that point you weren't really on social media much, so you weren't that easy to necessarily get a hold of at that point in time.
No, I was incognito for a year. No Instagram, barely any Facebook, and just WhatsApp. So it was a great year.
I'd say it's the modern day version of living off the grid. Like,
literally.
Where is this Nathan Johnson guy, and where is he?
Literally, for like the first 3 months, I had someone else post just to let people know that I was still alive. Like my mum and dad would come looking for me ever so once in a while, and then all the other people that my close friends would be like, "Oh, I don't see anything from you," Well, I just had to keep on posting through someone else so that they could see I was still alive or still relevant to some degree. But yeah, it was a very good experience. I would definitely recommend it for people that don't need social media for business.
I couldn't agree more. I think if I ever get to a point where I don't need it, I would just like literally 6 months, shut it down, don't need it. But as we've seen with you coming back to the fray and obviously doing your own thing now, we've seen just how powerful that can be as well, which I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit later. But for the listeners listening, I just wanted to kind of give them a bit of background of why I really wanted to bring you on. So people might not know that Mal and I actually worked with you as clients when we first met. So we'd met you right back before you left Dubai to go back to the UK and to work for R&T, and so we've kind of experienced firsthand you as a person, as a coach, and I think in the kind of modern world we live in, with the way the fitness industry is positioned, how people do position themselves on social media, I would say that you're probably one of the best coaches that people don't know about. Like, you're kind of a bit under the radar, and a lot of that's down to the previous employers that you've had and the infrastructure of that, and I think that's been a big part of it. But it's been really cool to see you now kind of, right, you've got your own voice now, and you're going to kind of go out and go it alone. So I think for the listeners listening, Nath's got a lot of insight to offer here as far as body transformations, because he has got a catalogue of results that I don't know many people that have that same sort of portfolio. So this should be a good one. So should we dive in, Nath, to question one?
Absolutely, appreciate it, and appreciate the kind words as well.
Of course. It's coming from a genuine place, so easy to say. So for our listeners who aren't familiar with you and your work, give us a bit of background. What got you into the fitness industry, and what would you say, in your opinion, are your kind of key milestones to this point?
So I guess I got into the industry for two reasons. One is probably personal, which is, the old fat kid trying to lose some weight. Did my first ever diet when I was 14. I probably didn't stop dieting until I was like 22. But that type of endeavor just like kind of allowed me to kind of evolve and take some interest in that. Alongside that, I come from like a family of people that just like, they give their last roll, though, if that's a good expression. You know, if they would give a helping hand to anybody. So my mum was a nurse, my dad was a teacher. So I always grew up in that mentality of like, you know, just wanting to help other people. And that's where I kind of got my serving nature from. So initially I was trying to be a physiotherapist. I ended up going down the route of sports rehabilitation because I just didn't quite have the grades. I was not too clever. I didn't book my ideas up until about probably at university, 18, 19. And then I moved into the injury world, sports rehabilitation, worked for some rugby teams and personal trained on the side just to earn a living. My main focus was actually just being present with the rugby team, helping those guys and kind of going on at weekends and trying to avoid as much booze as possible being with the rugby lads, which was probably one of the biggest learnings was that I can't drink like a rugby guy. As much as I tried for a couple of seasons, it just wasn't the case. I wasn't 110 kilos, so you can't put much beer in a 60 kilo frame. So I did that, and then I made the change to making PT my full-time gig. I just got into it a bit more, spent all my time stocking towels within Nuffield, and then in the mean times between stocking towels in Nuffield, I would read Alan Aragon's research review, or just like spend some time just researching and reading about everything. Ended up fast forward a few years working for some boutique gyms in London, really getting better at changing people's bodies, but understanding people and transforming not just their physical, but the mental and mind, body, and soul, and all things to do with transformative. Because the inside is a reflection of the outside is a reflection of the inside, and also it's not just one part of your life or one pillar that can just be focused on. You have to actually change other ones to make sure that one actually makes the change for the long term as well. So having done that, worked in Dubai, worked in the UK as PT, made the transition over to online with a company, and worked there for a few years. I think probably the most noticeable things you probably say is that I got London's personal trainer in 2017, if that even counts. But I think my key biggest milestone is that I just repetitively got people into the shape that they wanted to, and kept them in the shape that they wanted to. And for me, that is my biggest milestone. Every day I wake up with that same key milestone. Like the day changes, but that goal and that milestone still stays the same. So, I work every day to help people get in amazing shape, probably because I struggled to get in shape at the beginning myself. But now it's just because I'm in a position to unload education, unload insights, and kind of dig into people the way that they need to get coached to then transform. That would be me in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think it's a very succinct summary for sure. And I think, like you said, the way that Mal and I, when we met you, we sensed that this is someone who isn't just delivering a training session. It's someone who really is wanting to tap into the inner workings of a client. I think, to touch on your point that you said, there's a lot going on in a transformation beyond just the physical. And I think the thing that you probably, if you were to package it in one phrase, it would be they have to kind of change their identity of who they are, who they think they are. And I think that's something you definitely help those people do, at least from seeing your work in the past anyway.
Yeah, it's quintessential. I mean, the short-term change will just be the representation of a diet, but the ability to actually upskill and take on a lifestyle that represents this body that you want or the way that you want to feel, it has to be a complete change. You have to start thinking like a 65 kilo dude instead of a 110 kilo dude. Whilst that kind of comes over time, and you just don't make the switch. And I don't think anyone can actually say they'll ever pinpoint a specific day where they felt like that 65 kilo dude versus the 100 kilo dude. It's that process of kind of just upgrading one step at a time, and then upgrading each day, and through all of the milestones of losing weight, keeping weight off, training, all that type of stuff.
I think that's such a key.
So it just all wraps up into one.
Yeah, and I think the thing you just touched on there is the different milestones, because I think as far as the fitness industry goes, especially with PTs, most people hire PT because they just think almost, I want to lose weight, and they're almost thinking it's this one big long block of, well, I just need to get to here and that's it. And you and I both know, and I think you were one of the people that kind of very much inspired a lot of the way that we think about our kind of business, and how we've set up almost like we have our 5 steps or 5 different blocks that we can build a cycle of someone's journey. We kind of talk about there's multiple blocks on a cycle, and there's multiple cycles within someone's life as far as they're going through this. And as you know, once the fat loss phase ends, it's far from over at that point. And it's so nice that there's more and more and more coaches out there, including yourself, including us and our team, that are kind of understanding that, listen, like, it doesn't end with the fat loss phase, it's all the other stuff after that. And it might not even be one. They might have to revisit that, but at a different place at a different time with a new identity. And it's just, it should ideally be something that never really stops. So like you say, if someone's going to maintain results, it's like, man, like you have to look past the typical 8 to 12 week blast. It has to be much, much, much longer term focused.
100%. I think the problem, that most coaches kind of fall into like one or two categories. They either do the whole like long-term habits only solution, or they look at like just like 6-week challenges or whatnot. But what you have to realize is that whether it's clients or whatnot, like, you're meant to think the way that you do about this fat loss. Like, it's 20 years, it's 50 years, it's 100 years of culture of dieting to say that you can get your results in a short space of time. That's not on you to have that negative. It's a wrong thought process, 100%. Like, we know that, but from a client perspective, you're meant to think like that because of how much environmental factors are telling you that you can get in shape in 6 weeks, or you can change your life in 12 weeks. But you have to take that person, and then you have to take them from there and that thinking, and then upgrade to the position that they want to be in. And over the time period of when you're dieting someone, or when the client is progressing and moving towards their goals, by virtue of the coaching, they will realize that this fat loss is just the stepping stone, because majority of people are trying to do a diet to either get or take away a feeling. And when they realize that that problem isn't solved just because they have a six-pack or because they've got a good bum, then they realize that the step after the diet is more important than the first step that they take. No one's problems goes away when you get a six-pack. Other advantages come from that, but the problems that you came into this state feeling like doesn't dissolve.
100%, exactly. And it's funny you say about those two types of coaches. I think that's so true, that the ones who do really well are very good at, like, well, what do they need right now, versus, like, I think we felt that was almost, if I were to say pre Better Body Collective era for us, we were almost overly cautious as coaches. Like, we were wanting to really make sure we were sustainable and doing the long-term stuff. But the problem is that we didn't really have that killer instinct of knowing when it was right. No, you actually just need to dial it in now. You need to go. And all of a sudden, now that that's something that we've been much better at in the last 18 months, lo and behold, people are getting lean and getting the results they want. And so that took a lot for us to let go. Even as experienced coaches, we've been doing this for a long time. It's so hard to let go of those biases, and it works on both sides. So you've got the coaches that are like that, and then you've got the clients that use that as but I'm trying to do it sustainably, so I can't do anything aggressive. And it's like, well, the reality is it's actually the aggressive push you need right now, so that it sets you up for that longer term sustainability piece. But they just don't want to have to do it because of the sacrifices and the inherent things that need to be done to get there.
Yeah, because if they come in saying that they don't want to, so if they don't want a short term change, they just want to do it sustainably. They're already having this preconceived idea of what short-term diets do.
Yeah.
But that's negative as well, and that's not true for all the cases or most of the cases. And actually, like you said, normally the people that are ready to make those short-term changes and actually make a more of a drastic choice at the beginning are ready to probably face up to the fears of why they are in the place that they're in at this moment in time. Those that want to do sustainably are the ones that probably don't want to tackle the bigger issues, that don't want to be challenged or held accountable to their actions on a day-to-day basis when they actually need it the most, which is it's fundamental, obviously a flaw, because they're trying to get around accountability by saying that they want to do it sustainably because they think that they can get away with more over a long term as opposed to a short term, and holding that accountability to themselves. But that's where you take people, and that's where you start people, and that's the beauty of the game, that it is getting people in shape and keeping them in shape.
Exactly. I call it the sustainability cop-out, is what I've kind of termed it nowadays. So that's really what it is. Not everyone does that, but there's a lot of people that are riding that. And it's such a buzzword in our industry now as well. So I think we almost have to educate people what that actually means. And it isn't just 100%. Black and white.
Remember, diets aren't even sustainable. Diets are for a period of time. Like, lifestyles are sustainable.
Yeah.
But at some point you will need to make a bit of if you want to get to the visual changes that you want, you're gonna have to make a bit of a mid ground between the two. But if you have a headspace where you say, okay, well, a diet isn't for life, so let's do it now. Let's do all the learnings from it. Let's teach ourselves how to get in amazing shape, how to master walking every single day, 10,000 steps. Let's make sure that we get our consistent training in 3 to 4 times a week. Let's look after sleep. Let's look after stress. Let's look after food intake. And you take those learnings from that dieting phase, you can then move into that lifestyle phase with a more bigger understanding, and actually get more out of it when you get there as well.
Definitely. It's almost like the diet builds the base of habits, but you've still got to ingrain those habits after that as well, right?
Yeah. Because when the pressures of the diet go away, that's when you see what sustainability and lifestyle they really want, and that's often quite a tough thing for people to see, because they do things just for the diet, and then the day after they start changing their habits because they did it just for a diet as opposed to doing it for a precursor for a lifestyle.
Definitely, could not agree more. I think that's a great time to segue into question 2. So we obviously know you were a passionate in-person trainer for many years before you made that leap to being full online, and you've been a full online coach now for how many years has it been now?
It's about 4.
Jesus, time flies. It really does.
I know.
So with that in mind, what are the biggest challenges you found in terms of making that switch? Because I'm sure we do have a few coaches that listen to this podcast as well. So many of them are maybe even thinking with the current times of COVID, like, should I make the switch to online? And they'll maybe try to keep the feet in both camps, which is hands up guilty, still what I'm doing at this point in time as well. Mm-hmm. And at some stage for us that want to make that big switch to, right, I'm not working with people in person anymore. What were the biggest challenges for you when you did it? And then conversely, what have been really the huge positives that you've had from making that move?
Okay, cool. So we'll start with the positives, because that's just great. Well, basically, like 2019, I for every business guru that will sell you the laptop lifestyle, I did that in 2019. I lived the laptop lifestyle. I was able to, serve my clients effectively, get amazing results, but I did it on a beach in different countries, and I basically changed city every week for 52 weeks, which was crazy. And I know that me and Mal went to, we spent a week together in Petra in Jordan. She came out to visit, and then I floated off to Barcelona for a week, and then moved on to somewhere else. And I lived that lifestyle. So from an online perspective, like, if you're wanting a bit more freedom, that's great. You're still going to be like ball and chain to a desk or a sun lounger with your laptop for 6-8 hours a day. But you're able to do it with a little bit more of a suntan, maybe a drink, maybe in a different scenario, not your mum and dad's back bedroom or your own little flat. So that was a massive positive for me. I think the ability to serve more people, like when I was PTing at the best, I would do maximum 15 clients. And that was like 3 to 4 times a week, and that was 15 people. And you just want your knowledge and you want your experience and your education to serve more people. Maybe it's a bit of an ego thing, but like, you have more to give to people than just 15 people. And people deserve the information that you've got in your head, especially when it's fitness and health, right? When you come from it from a background of just wanting to help, you just want to give it to more people. So I was able to do that through the online space as well. What were the difficulties and biggest challenges? I think for me personally, I speak how I write as well. So I wasn't a particularly great writer to start with. My grammar was rubbish. I just sounded blunt on emails. I sounded like a bit of an asshole straight away, even when I had the best intentions. And I think the biggest thing for me was learning how to communicate with clients and how to get the best out of them instead of being with them 3 times a week. And that challenge, it still takes time. I don't think you'll ever solve it, because every client will be different and what their needs are will be different. But because you're behind a laptop and because you're, connected with the internet 24/7, 7 days a week, you can make better decisions for what that client needs and be there any way, shape or form that they desire. Whether it's videos, whether it's touch points on WhatsApp, whether it's, as you were saying, using Slack, or, it's through Instagram and Facebook. Like, you can make the difference to people just by dropping them a message or being there in support, especially when the accountability needs to be higher, when they're, changing habits, changing a lifestyle and changing, probably their environment as well.
Definitely. And it's funny, like you say, with the, the in-person stuff, you obviously have that time to give to those people. But the interesting thing is, because with what we do, and we were talking about this off air, we kind of have this hybrid model we run where even our in-person clients, the base of their plan is always the online kind of accountability outside of the gym, because as you well know, most people that have an issue turning up 3 hours a week, it's the stuff outside of that that's where the real, losses are made or results are made. And we actually found that, I think a lot of coaches justify to themselves, and even clients, like, oh, but I see you 2-3 times a week. And so, we have a lot of touch points. But the reality is they're there to train. You're not really got the time to really dive in on things that they maybe need a little bit more elaboration on, or they need to dive a bit deeper in terms of reflection or introspection. And so I think we found that, especially in this last year, that actually you can, and that's why we didn't want to have a personal training only part to our business anymore, because we just realized that it's just not enough. Even just the physical contact points. Sure, you can ask a few questions, and you've been there before. You might end up a training session turns into a counseling session. But at the same time, oh God, yeah. But at the same time, it's like, well, you're also paying a lot of money to get the most out of your training sessions as well. So I think, like you said, I can completely understand how as soon as you take away that in-person time and you can give more of that time towards probably the areas of their coaching they actually need the more time, which is probably not time with you in person. It's the, right, are you sticking to your plan? Have you got any questions? What obstacles are you facing this week? And being able to go back and forward a bit more. But like you say, when you're working 100, 120 hours a month on the floor, there's only so much resources you have to be able to stay on top of those people as well. So
yeah, absolutely. Like you just end up everything just consuming you. And it definitely did for me when I was PTing and just trying to get the best for your clients. And you would end up like, the last person you'd speak to on a day-to-day basis before you went to bed was your clients, and not like your missus or, your mum or dad or whoever it was. It would be that client, and you were checking up, oh, did they follow their diet for that specific day? And it just gets quite consuming, because then, it's you've spent with them in the gym in the daytime, but because you're filling your day with obviously training other people as well, you'd have to do most of the catch up in the evening, which is, after starting at 5 a.m. isn't a pleasant being.
No, it becomes very all consuming, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've both been there. So in terms of your online work, and even when I suppose you were working with people in person as well, you're not someone who's working with all the elite of the elite. You're very much predominantly working with general population for the most part, the bread and butter for most coaches. And the reality is you've also been able to achieve quite significant results, in fact, incredible results with those people. What would you say are probably the key factors that really determine those who end up succeeding in that endeavor, and those who essentially just, make the same mistakes over and over, or they fall off and then have to get back on that good old hamster wheel another time?
Yeah, that's it. It's the age old question. I think if I knew 100%, I'd be, you'd get 100% return on every single client, and unfortunately that just isn't going to be the case. There's obviously the laws of averages, and just some people aren't ready, and I think that's the first one. I think the biggest thing that you see when people are ready to succeed, or they are ready to like just filter out and yo-yo again, or whatever they're doing, is like, do they really want to do it? And there's a difference between like being triggered into making a decision to join some coaching, or there's a decision between like, I actually physically want to do this. I think someone put a post, I was listening to something, it was like, are you interested or are you committed? And then when you ask that to that client, and you go through all of those clients that you had before, and you're like, okay, out of those 50 people, let's say, for example, you had, and you asked those people interested or committed, you would find that the people that are committed to making the change are the ones that would get some level of results. And like, everyone can lose a few kilos, that's absolutely fine, but we're talking about the people that actually use that physical body transformation that changes a lot of other things in their day-to-day, and they go on to make 20, 25 plus kilos, 15 kilo plus changes, and then being able to maintain that. And it's that committed versus interested mentality that would often dictate it. And if you're interested, that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It just means that when the going gets tough, you're less likely to stick at it. And I would say, you need to find something that you're committed to that would make it super easy for you to follow. And I think that as a coach, that's what I think I've done very well, is that you understand that people will do what they want to do. People rise to their priorities. People will do their priorities. You can rest assured about that with the human nature. So you just have to find what they prioritize, what they will commit to. And once they are committed to that, then you will get exponentially better results than given something that they're just potentially interested in, or would be a benefit to you or them, but it would only leave them with some level of interest as opposed to commitment. That would be key.
I like that. I really like that. That is a phrase to be coined for sure.
Yeah, I'll definitely use that one. No one was after this podcast goes out. And I think another key factor, so that'd be one, obviously, are you committed or are you interested?
Yeah.
And I think the second one is your starting point will almost dictate your end point or the time frame that you can do it in. And obviously time frame's not really that relevant, but shorter changes and getting out of a diet is obviously more beneficial than staying in a diet for 36, 52 weeks and doing diet breaks and coming back into it. It's just a lot less psychologically abrasive. But having that, I forgot what I said actually. Mine's gone blank. What was my second point?
So it was the end point. You were saying that the starting point will heavily dictate the...
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know why I brain farted then. Is that you have to address where you're at, where your environment's at, what your current habits are. Like if you have 12 snacks a day, like my base of clients are probably, Asian by nature, culturally, they're not specifically that well clued up on nutrition, but equally their food intake that they have is very, very high calorie and density. One meal, or their cultural habits from having like 5 rotis or chapatis with each meal with ghee on could be leading them to eating 1,500 calories in each meal. So where their starting point is slightly different to someone else that is already eating potentially protein and vegetables at every single meal. So your starting position will be different, and how you coach them through that is key. So if you're coming from that position where you're coming from, it's not a lower position, it's just different. It's a different environmental, cultural background. You're going to have to make bigger steps up, but equally in those bigger steps up, there's quite a lot of hurdles to come past. It's the cultural, it's the environmental, it's like what the social norm is, and you have to cross all of those barriers to get to where you want to. And ultimately, if we're looking at like long-term change and looking at like weight management, your ability to manage your social events, have some flexible constraints, exercise regularly, and deal with stress is probably the large things that keep your weight managed over the long term. And if you can do that within your environment, then you'll achieve incredible results. But if you're starting from a relatively different place compared to where you want to be, that is going to affect your time frame. That's going to affect how many hurdles you're willing to go through before you maybe take a step back. And that would be a key factor for sure.
That's a really good one. I wanted to touch on a point you made in your first point, which I thought was just something that literally just triggered in my mind as you were saying that. Was we both worked for the same company at one point, and I remember conducting so many initial consultations, and and it's funny not having that framework of committed or interested, because at that point in time you're just interested in, right, this person needs to sign up to the plan, needs to get going. And I look back to the success rate specifically of that business at that time, and if you think about the amount of people that signed up to the amount of people that actually got like they got a sick transformation, it was really, really low. And part of that, I think, is because, like you say, it hasn't necessarily been ascertained as to whether, right, this is something you're really dialed in and committed to. Because when, and we see this, when those 8 and 12 week transformations are put out there, people are very interested in something like that, because it's like, oh, well, I've seen these transformations online. It seems like it's super doable. I could do that. But they haven't really fully understood exactly what it is it's going to entail to get to that point. And actually, and I always like Luke Lehman's way of saying it is that most people doing those 8 to 12 weeks, that is their prep phase to actually start something proper. I just thought it was something so interesting. So when we started our business and we started finding that we were really not brutal, but brutally honest up front, right? Listen, this is where you are now. This is the constraints you have in place. Lay all cards literally right out on the table, right? And then this is going to take this, and this. You can expect this from us. We expect this from you. Is this still something that you're really interested in doing? Or is this something that you're going to be willing to make that commitment to, just to use those words? And we found that the conversion rate, despite it being quite a bit lower than what it was conducting those same type of consults for the initial company, the way that we did it was different. The conversion rate was lower, but then those that actually signed up and got started, the percentage success rate has been much, much higher. So I think that's very interesting as well. So we almost, as coaches, have a bit of a responsibility from an ethics standpoint to actually make sure we're very clear about what it's going to involve. Because unfortunately, you and I both know, Nath, that there's so many people offering coaching out there, and it's like, yeah, we'll do it. Yeah, no problem. You can do that. No problem. And it's not really well managing expectations in line with reality and in line with what's actually possible for that individual. So I thought that was just an interesting point, touching on that, like, you know, being really clear.
Yeah, 100%. You have to be clear right from the top. But I think as a trainer, you have to understand the mechanics of why people go into your inbox as a coach. And for me, having so many years of tried to diet, fail, was the worst diet to go in, binge eating for years and years and years. You know, you come to every Monday and you try and look for a solution. Or every Sunday you'd look for a solution when you've had 2 days of eating like crap and you're just like, I need something to focus on next week, or I need some way to justify this 2 days worth. So then I will then go and, you know, do something on a Monday that was like a new plan or something, a new beginning. And if you've got some, like, there's a high percentage of your clientele that will be coming through your door that are interested because of probably the guilt that they've had from the weekend, or interested because of the way that they've been acting recently, that they want to move away from it very, very quickly. But that still is just interested. Committed comes through like the nurturing process of like understanding what they have to do, understanding where they are right now versus where they're going to be. And they almost start interested, but it's the conversion from interested to committed through your process as a coach, and themselves as well, that they're willing to like take the steps forwards, that really defines them moving into that committed zone. Because if you just keep them with interest, you know, people will lose that 4 or 5 kilos in a month's time, and then they'll be like, right, okay, cool, I've done it. You know, I've done what I needed to do. I got out of that feeling that I wanted to get out of. I don't feel guilty anymore. Okay, cool, I'm done. But we all know that that's only just the start. You know, if they've lost the 4 kilos that they gained from 2 weeks ago, they haven't really solved the problems of their lifestyle or the systems that they've got, and they're still potentially quite interested. So I think that, you know, having that, lay your cards out on the table, but from a client perspective, that if clients are listening to this, you have to fully understand what's expected of you during that time so that you can commit. Because you can't commit to something like, it's very, very hard to commit to something that you don't know what the outcomes are, what the specific asking points are from yourself, and what type of processes am I going to be undertaking? Is there room for change? Or like, am I going to be stuck to a meal plan for the next 12 weeks? Or am I going to be doing like this? Or am I going to do this? And that process will allow you to be more committed to a process as a client, because you can ask those questions so that you can commit, as opposed to just be interested by that guilt that was potential over the weekend. That makes sense?
100%. That's kind of it just got me thinking of another question there, like just from your point of view, like bearing in mind that many people might not actually be ready to start, like say, like, you know, we kind of have our phases. We have like prepare, transform, solidify, like we've given them kind of names, and you guys, you know, you've been exposed to that in the past as well with your previous businesses and things like that. We've often found that many people are not actually really ready to start that transform phase or that fat loss phase. How often do you find that it's actually, or how common has it been for you as a coach, where you've actually had to take a bit more time at the start to kind of almost get them to a place where they're ready to go from that interested, committed point?
I'd like to say it's probably not happened as many times as it should have. And that's, you know, the constraints of where you work and the pressures from both sides on what's expected coming in. Because obviously, when you're working on your own, you layer those expectations yourself. And like, if that person, you've spoke to them on the phone, or you've had like a pre-consultation with them, you know what situation they're in. But in other scenarios, when it's not in that type of format, you just get given a client by some means, you don't have the ability to then make that decision straight off the bat. They're already layered into some level of interested and committed, but into something that you've not told. So it's quite a difficult thing when you work with someone else. I think that for now, for like the people I've took on in the last recent cohort of my new autonomy, there's at least 3 to 5 of them that I've said straight off the bat, like, you know, what's the point in dieting again to start with? Like, you've dieted before, what's the point? Like, you're trying to get this weight off, you've lost it all, you put it back on again, but you haven't solved your problems. So let's just get you a stable routine. Let's just prepare you for dieting if we need to. But ultimately, you're going to just end up in the same spot as you did before if you have the same mentality that you're going with. If you're trying to diet your problems off, and then you get to the bottom part where you've lost 20 kilos, you followed that meal plan diligently because you that's what you did last time, you'll get the same results. So for now, there's definitely a proportion of my clientele that you have to look at more of a case of, are they ready? But what have they done before that will dictate their interactions in the first couple of weeks. And for the most part, if they're trying to find the magic bullet, or they've yo-yoed a lot, the just high chances are that they just need some stability at the moment. And sometimes it's like they don't know anything other than dieting. So give them another option. And then they can make the decision to diet when they're ready to be in that position.
Definitely. It's funny that I had a follow-up question and then you literally answered it within that answer. Is that something you're going to implement more in your own coaching practice now? Like, is in that more of that taking the time, doing the prepare work, really getting the mentality and the habits in the right place? And it sounds like that's something you're definitely considering a lot more, given that you have much more autonomy with your own business.
Yeah, I think trying to diet someone when they're not ready is like shoving it, like pushing a rock up a hill. It's very, very arduous. It never gets to the point that you want it to. And if we always know that people will move to their highest priorities, if we know that people will move to what's important to them, then you've just got to look at their whole life in like one broad sweeping statement, and look at their pillars that they've got, and just be like, this person may follow a meal plan for 4 to 6 weeks, but they're not ready to make the changes in other areas to facilitate that long-term transformation. And if that's the case, and they're in that position where they're not ready to diet, or they've been dieting so much that they're just completely, I don't know, there's no specific word for it, but they've just constantly been on a new diet every single week for the last 3-5 years of their life, or constantly have that feeling of restriction. You need to take them out of that, because doubling down on it is not gonna help, and it always will create that overcorrection in the opposite direction at some point.
So try to drive a car with a handbrake on. You can do it, but you're going to burn out real quick, and it ain't going to look pretty. Shit's going to go up in flames at some point.
Absolutely.
So given that we're speaking about autonomy, it's a great time to segue onto exactly that. So you've started your own online business called Autonomy, which, great name, by the way, brilliant name, actually. What's next for Nathan Johnson and Autonomy?
So we are just taking it day by day, but ultimately, I know the goal of what I want to achieve, and I don't know when it's going to be done by, and I don't know what's going to happen, but ultimately the goal is to put people in a position where they control or have autonomy with their health and fitness. So for me at the moment, that looks like people going through a coaching process, getting into the shape that they want, staying in the shape that they want for a period of time. Alongside that, having the education to understand what to do by themselves and how to do it by themselves later on down the line. My goal is to kick every single one of my clients out probably around the 1.5 to 2 year mark, and have them have enough information, have enough accountability measures or metrics to be able to keep it going by themselves, or have a level or a baseline level that was significantly higher than where they were before, so they don't have to think about the kind of the foods that they're eating. They don't have to think about the calories that they're eating. They don't have to think about how to act in social situations. They just do it, and it's on automatic as much as possible. And when you have that as your baseline, you're going to be able to do anything that you want from the health and fitness side of things. So that's kind of the goal of the process, and just getting people through that and seeing how that goes is the next steps.
Yeah, if anything, it should just be autonomous, and it all works the way it should do, right? There's so many ways
Yeah, absolutely.
off that word.
I know. It's like it's great. It's great. It's like it was obviously people say okay, like control, but I don't like the word control, but it is in my tagline. But it's about people finding what they're like. Fitness shouldn't be the highest priority in your life. It really shouldn't. I think self-care and yourself and your family and all those things should be super, super high, and then you can have fitness at like 4 or 5 or 6 in your type of priority scale. And because it's not number 1, it shouldn't compromise it because it's number 6. So my goal is to get people so autonomous that fitness can be number 6 in their priorities. They can have 5 more things important in it, or 6 more things important in it, but you still maintain the position that you want to be in for the next 20 years of your life.
Yeah, I think that's so key. But I suppose the reality is a lot of people, their priority for fitness or health is more than like they're at 10, 11, 12 and beyond. So I quite like that, like you say, because I think, and you've seen this in our industry, which is so polarizing, people literally let their fitness and listen, we're the worst part as PTs. We've all been like this at some stage where literally fitness is number 1. and that just never ends well. And so that just has to slide down. And like you say, you get to a point where you just become better at doing it. That it doesn't have to place so highly on the rung, on the ladder. I think that's super important. So that's a great point for our listeners to take away, I think.
Absolutely.
Doesn't have to be all consuming, guys. So this takes us to the quick fire round. This is the fun round. So Nath has no idea what's coming at him right now.
Okay.
Sorry, you look pretty calm. It's all right though. You're just like, yeah, bring it on. It's cool.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So what's your favorite meal to have out?
Savory or sweet?
That was the next question.
Oh, okay. Let's go with. I'm really into two. I'm just gonna have to choose one. I'm gonna go chili paneer, Indian dish, chili paneer, a couple of rotis, and maybe a samosa.
Yeah, because you've
got a pint of Cobra.
Indian cuisine, haven't you?
Yeah, I've really got into it. Absolutely fantastic. I love it. And I kind of made it great within a diet. So like now it's like no excuse to even leave it out at any point. So it's fantastic.
So I guess that's going to potentially answer the next question. Although I do know you have a sweet tooth from past visits, but savory or sweet, you had to choose.
Both, but I'm definitely going to go savory.
Yeah, because I know you're like Mal. You like your pick and mix.
I love pick and mix, cheesecake. Those ones are. I'm more and more fine tuned now. That's why I say savory. But bread over anything really.
Oh yes. I tell you what, that pick and mix habit, Mal hasn't got rid of that. It's still around.
Yeah, I have to say sorry for that. And for the listeners, that's when we were doing our bulking phase for Mal during her, when we were working together, we just needed to get the calories in. So we just made a decision to, visit the local pick and mix store, which is a fantastic pick and mix down under JBR in Dubai. Fantastic. Great selection of fudge as well, and ice cream as well. I remember that place very, very fondly. But then it just started and never stopped. So she could be their favourite customer.
Exactly. Granted, she hasn't had as much of it. It kind of was there almost weekly for a long time, and then just has it periodically now. But it's also a lesson for listeners that we still eat those type of things as well. Though I certainly enjoyed my fair amount of fudge during that bulking phase. That's for sure. And those things work, but it's just got to be context dependent, right?
Absolutely.
For sure. In fact, we've actually got carrot cake from Lime Tree. I don't know if you remember Lime Tree's carrot cake or not.
Lime Tree is a coffee shop as well, is it?
Yeah.
You took me there. Actually, I do remember that.
So we've got a carrot cake sitting in the fridge at the moment. So there you go. That's for dessert tonight. There you go. So you said sweet or savoury. Next question is, say like this whole COVID situation, we're obviously stuck in lockdown at the moment, right? If you could go one place, like say you were only allowed to ever go to one place post lockdown, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's ridiculous.
For a guy that loves to travel, that's a horrible question.
Yeah, I think. Do you know what? I'm going to go safe bet. I'm going to go. No, I want to go back to America. I want to go back to Miami and New York. LA is fantastic. No diss in the West Coast, but there's nothing like a New York City. They got my favorite restaurant there, and then just a 2-hour 2-hour flight down to Miami, and you're in the sunshine, and you can party all you want as well. So I think that would be the next trip, and that would be the mix of both as well, because you can work on a beach or you can work in the city, whichever one you want to do.
Very cool. Favorite exercise? If you had one currently, what would it be?
Eating. No, my favorite exercise is probably dips, just because I work well with them, and just getting stronger with them as well. So just preferencing what I'm good at the moment.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, it's not no one said dips yet, but I have to say I do like a dip as well. Yeah. If you can rattle out some weighted dips, you're in a pretty good spot. Yeah, definitely agree on that. If you had to say an exercise that you wish would just disappear, that you wish people would just never have to do again, what would it be?
I would say a difficult one.
So many bad ones. That's why it's taken so long.
I know. I don't know. Maybe maybe if the gyms were all just something like a like a machine back extension. I don't know, just something that I don't rate that well. Um, I don't really have any that I hate. I mean, I can tell you that any exercise can be done with hate because of how poor the form is, but something like a back extension machine, I just you can do so many better things than doing a machine.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
You know.
Books that have shaped you the most, doesn't have to be industry specific. Just like favorite books that you may be reading at the moment or have read in the past.
A good few books. Andre Iguodala, who is a basketball player, he has a fantastic autobiography. Nothing about fitness, but it talks about elite sport, which is where you can get quite a lot of information about how people like act on a day-to-day basis when they have like a singular goal, which kind of helps within the fitness and health world, and a lot about black segregation when he was growing up as well, when he was trying to make it in the basketball world, which is interesting. I think James Smith's books, the first one is really, really good, just breaking down nice and simple topics, but also done in a way that I kind of relate to and can kind of speak in the same voice. I would say that Tyson Fury's book, I kind of read autobiography, so Tyson Fury's book is fantastic. The way that he came and conquered that mental illness and what he came from is just absolutely inspiring. And the last thing that I would say is just an anatomy book. That changed my life for 3 years when I was at university. I can't really name which one it was now, but when I had to study anatomy for 3 years, it became my life and my soul, and probably a lot of my understanding around training and exercise came from those bare basics and foundational layers. So I have to attest a lot to looking at joints and bodies within a textbook.
I can see why RTS would have appealed to you then when you went to do that.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm currently going through the RTS stuff at the moment, which is so fun, so good. Tom purposes.
I need to get back into that type of stuff. I had a break for a while just because of the transferability to online is really difficult for general pop. So sometimes you just live by your contacts, right? And you're trying to improve the people that you're trying to work with. So sometimes it doesn't have that transfer over, but I love it from a geek perspective. Love it.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's something for in-person coaches. I think they all need to do that stuff. But like you say, online, it's incredibly difficult how you communicate that unless you happen to do what I'm planning to move into, which is education. Then that's a different thing because you kind of need to deliver that stuff anyway. So yeah, I hear you. It'd be good to get back on the RTS train at some point.
Yeah.
So this is going to be an interesting one. So say you were stuck on a desert island, no one else was around, and you could only take 3 things. What would they be?
I would take a notebook that had a pen included, so that's just 1 instead of 2.
Very clever.
And I would take I'd take a boat to get off the island. Just secondly, when I was bored, because you just be able to go on an island for a period of time, but when it's time to row off, you'll want to go. So a boat would be second one. And then the third one would be suntan cream, because if a desert island is sunny, you're just going to burn to a crisp. So just be able to write and chill, and when the time is gone, you can go on your boat and row away. That's probably not the answers you were looking for, but
what answer should I be looking for? I don't know, right? But we ask almost every guest that, and there's been some cracking answers. Some people have been super survival-esque, like, I'd take something to filter water, and I'd take this to cut down things and kill animals. And literally no one said sunscreen, so no one said that, and no one said a boat, which is hilarious. If you think about it, then you're no longer got a problem because you can get off the island anytime you want.
Exactly right. So find a solution to your problems.
Lateral thinking. That's how it's done. Second to last question. Who's shaped or inspired your career the most? Like, if you look at people out there in the fitness space, who's kind of helped mold and kind of influence your career to this point?
I think your parents will always dictate a lot of your baseline stuff, your fundamentals, your environment, your family, and the values that they live by. I think I had a couple of lecturers called John and Rob that were really quintessential in my ability to like kind of progress, and they pointed me in the right direction. Without that, I would never got the stepping stones that I did. They were great. I think John now is like a strength and conditioning coach for one of the England teams, C level or something like that, and Rob is now a strength and conditioning coach for an international ski and snowboard facility. So like he's like they're really really great level coaches. And then you've got all of the people that were in like Michael Goulden. You know, not spent that much time with him, but when I have done, it's been the stuff that makes you think in the way that it lasts with you for years and months. You got the guys like Luke and Callum, muscle mentors. They're just obviously committed to what they do and getting very very good at what they do. And I think I like to absorb, people. You just watch some of I like sports a lot. I really, really like sports. So you just take a lot from those guys. You listen to interviews about primarily basketball players and American football players because you listen to how they live and how they act and what they do, and read autobiographies that kind of just make you 1% better or make you think about something a bit differently. Apart from that, that would be it. I think everywhere that you go, every person that you interact with shapes you in some way, shape, or form. And whether that for the better or for the worse, they give you something. You can always learn from everybody as well. So
yeah,
just everybody.
Yeah, people don't often think about it, I guess, is that they always look at who the people that influenced you positively, but the negative influences are also pretty important as well. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
Right, who should we have next on the podcast?
I think you should have. Have you done one with Mal?
As in wifey?
Yeah.
We did an intro episode where it was her and I on the podcast, but we've not actually had Mal just on speaking herself yet. So there you go. Good shout.
I would have Mal on. She's fantastic.
We'll have to hook that up. We can find time in our busy schedule.
Yeah, and then you should do it opposite as well. She should interview you.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe we'll have to tee that up for certain episode numbers as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Better Body co-founders Ross and Mal revisited. You guys had,
yeah, literally.
So I mean, you've obviously with the last company you worked for, you guys had a lot of like very cool people on the podcast. Was there anyone in particular on there that was like really cool to interview?
I think I guess the theme that they went down when they were there was like you hear it from a client's perspective.
Yes.
And I think that makes a lot of a difference to some people when they want to hear about relatability. Obviously, like trust comes in a few different shapes or forms: credibility, reliability, and like there's one more. And intimacy. So credibility, relatability, and intimacy. So sometimes you get the intimacy seen through social media. You see the credibility through the stuff, but then you lack relatability because someone might not be like you. So I feel like if you're going to get some stuff, like you would definitely benefit from hearing some of your clients go through their journey or midway through it. And that'd be fantastic for other people to see. Like, oh, well, I struggled with that too, or I did that too, and that gives you a larger context to help people as well.
Definitely. We've actually had a couple of our clients on, but I think it's something we need to do way more of. We've only had 2, and we're episode 38. This will be so. Yeah, I think it's time to get more clients on board.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So good shout, Nath. So wifey and clients done. Last but not least, where can people find you?
I'm only at one place at the moment, which is Instagram, which is Nathan.Autonomy, and that's it for now. There's just content coming out daily. Hopefully, there's some relatability and some funniness when it goes into the stories. I try and keep it as non-PT as possible because I think there's a lot of PTs that kind of keep it really, really serious. And we want to try and make it as much as a top 5 priorities as we spoke about, not just the one. So there's plenty of stuff around friends and family and just eating nice foods and stuff. So that's where you find me for the moment.
Very cool. So we'll make sure we link that in the show notes anyway. And I also remember because I checked out your profile and everything just ahead of the show as you do, and you've got a link tree there. So there's easy for people to find you and do whatever they need to do to inquire about coaching or to learn more about you. They'll find it all on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nathan, awesome. Thanks for coming on, buddy. It's much appreciated. I'm sure we'll do this again at some point.
No, it was a pleasure. It's always good to catch up.